democratic devolution that have been embraced and actually exercised by the people of Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And in the case of Scotland, of course, they've had long existing distinct education systems with higher qualification standards for teachers. And in the case of the Senedd, of course, plans for better control of single-use plastics than we have managed in our meagre efforts here in England. And so I will focus on the international and rule of law issues in the bill. And first, I really would like to congratulate the Constitution Committee for their wonderful report on this bill. I actually read it through and laughed with pleasure. So thank you very much for that. And I think this debate has also been extremely interesting because I really didn't think anybody would be able to have the audacity to defend this bill, apart from the minister moving it, of course. But the Constitution Committee expressed the problem very well on law when it said, society cannot afford to take this principle for granted or acquiesce in its violation. The rule of law is essential to an open and democratic society and the institutions which embody and protect it. Any government that seeks to secure widespread compliance with the law must itself adhere to it. And it's absolutely indicative that there are two regret motions when, of course, one of them is from the convener of the crossbenchers, who's an Lord Chief Justice of England and Wales, and the other is from a peer who was a Conservative MP for 40 years. These are hardly rebels of the usual kind. And this bill actually, I feel the government's got some cheek actually moving this now, because it's less than a year since they campaigned on Boris's deal as their main election gambit. And your Lordship's House then passed that deal in recognition of the fact that the government had won the election almost as a quasi-referendum on the deal itself. And now the government comes to Parliament to try and unpick key provisions of the deal that they negotiated themselves. It's too easy to get bogged down in seeing this as a narrow political issue around Brexit and Boris's deal. It is much, much deeper. And for all those few noble lords who've been talking about Ramonas, I voted for Brexit, and I still am deeply unhappy with this bill. And the government tries to use the principle of parliamentary sovereignty to justify this course of action, but that is wrong. And a classic example of parliamentary sovereignty that others have also attempted is that nothing stops Parliament from passing a law to ban French men from smoking in the streets of Paris, but this, of course, would have absolutely no effect. Parliament has the power to pass legislation which violates international laws and agreements, but just because it has the power to do it doesn't mean it's justified in doing so. So there is scope for your Lordship's House to amend the bill to remove the offending provisions. However, if this bill can't be sufficiently amended, then our role as guardians of the Constitution will require us to reject the bill in its entirety. I will, of course, support the amendment.